Last time we discussed top 5 strategies that almost everyone hates in StarCraft 2, but of course there are more than just 5. A lot of people in the comment section suggested making a part 2 with many other annoying things you have to deal with on the StarCraft 2 ladder. So today we'll discuss exactly that, another top 3 of annoying stuff you face in this game. Protoss race has a lot of scary all-ins, and most people would name 2 base Blink Stalker all-ins. And while it's an intimidating thing to face, it's certainly not as frightening and annoying as Zealot all-ins that were happening during the whole existence of StarCraft 2. In both Wings of Liberty and How to Do Swarm, Zealot all-ins were not so common. Since most other players would go for Roaches anyways, there were more efficient strategies such as Sentry, Immortal all-ins or Blink Stalkers. I mentioned them in this video. But occasionally, there were great proxy gate moments like this one.
Very soon.
You can't deal with this!
He doesn't even necessarily have to go with just 2, he could wait for a 3rd one, but if he knew, he will go straight and
the drone! He knows!
But he doesn't have a pull, what does he do?
He throws down the pull, the Zealots are now on the way. They're gonna do a lot of work, they're gonna go to town on these drones, but Hyun is gonna micro furiously against this.
He can't sell the 3rd hatchery.
Oh, the Zealots here trying to be surrounded. He doesn't want to get that strand. He does get it. One of those Zealots will end up dying off pretty darn quickly. But at the same time, he is not mining at this point. Very little is incoming here for Hyun. He's going to have very little to make any Zerglings.
Yeah, he has no money behind this. He's making extra drones, which is a mistake at this point. 3 Zealots are out. They're going to start slicing up those drones. Those drones don't even know what to do against those.
He actually cancelled his natural. He cancelled his natural. He knows he needs money to deal with this, but a lot of drones are dying off. 2 more Zealots are going to come out very soon. If he keeps these Zealots alive, then he can get back in that great round there, though, by Hyun.
Oh, this is so close. He needs to start a Spine and some Zerglings. He's going to start the Spine behind his mineral line. 4 Zerglings are on the way, but 2 Zealots are there, and 2 more are on the way for Naniwa.
They need to start work. They need to start work. These 2 Zealots, they're going to go into town for it, and he has 7 drones left against 9 probes. The Zealots are going to work, and all those drones are almost dead. He finds the Spine. He's going to kill that off as well. More Zerglings are on the way, but 3 Zealots against this. Hyun is down and out. Hyun is going to die, and Naniwa with a proxy 2 game number 5 is going to be victorious. GG, ladies and gentlemen. Naniwa advances on to the grand finals!
In Legacy of the Void, Zealot was changed quite a lot to make it more viable again. This unit got new bonus stats after the charge upgrade, basically making it a very strong melee warrior. But due to speed changes, it was now harder to kite against Zealots, and their extra damage on hit made them much better in mid-game timing. Subsequently, these changes allowed Protoss players to invent new cheesy all-ins in most matchups. Even in mid-game, you could now play Zealot Archons against Terrans and have less splash units because Zealots just got stronger. While it was somewhat of a problem for other races, Zerg players were suffering the most. There were few early timings, such as 7 Warp Gate Rush that would hit you with 14 Zealots. Zerg players had to micro their hearts out to defend and kite, while it was relatively easy to use this build order as a Protoss player. At one point, Protoss players ultimately mastered this cheese and created a totally new one, which was even harder to hold than before. So-called Marjorie build was created by the German player Frisk, aka Marjorie, who was able to earn an upset win over Lambo whilst using it on the ladder. The build then was picked up by professional Protoss players on the European server, such as Hearthstone for example. Thankfully, this period didn't last for too long. After some time, Blizzard decided to change the meta and make such strategies less powerful, and they nerfed Zealot Charge. While most of these builders are still relatively strong, their usage certainly went downhill after the patch. Back in the good old days of How to Do Swarm, Hellbats were a lot more stronger. They had a very decent splash area as well as extra damage against light units, and as soon as they were introduced into the game, Terran players found a creative way to use them. Hellbat drops caused nightmares for all 3 races. Because of how quickly they evaporated Worker Lines or any other light units, it was almost always worth building them, even against fellow Terran brothers.
Let's go. Add-on complete. Heading out. Fired up here. Waiting on you.
And there is really not much to say. Even though people learned how to counter them better, they were super efficient for their price. Hellbats could quickly swing a game in turn's favor, or simply delay your opponent long enough for you to capitalize on the economy. After some thoughts, they were nerfed pretty hard, and even though you can still use the drop strategy, Hellbats are a mere shadow of their former OP glory. Nidus Worm was one of the most underused units that the Zerg race had. It's a very cool thing that gives a lot of flavor to the Zerg race, but sadly it's rarely needed on most occasions. Sometimes Zerg players would use it for their all-in attacks, but it was like a coin flip. If your opponent sees that, there is very little chance that your attack would succeed. Mainly because it also took too much time for units to unload from the worm. So Blizzard once again came up with a genius idea. They buffed the Nidus Worm in many different ways. Now it was cheaper, there was no cooldown, and units were popping out much faster. The only nerf was that now you could actually attack it while it's still burrowing, but it had a whopping 6 amount of armor and most units dealt relatively low damage to it. Needless to say that Zerg players now had a great incentive to use them. From a niche tool it became a must-have thing in most situations, and every Zerg player would just throw them around the map and fill them up with roaches or other units. Now it was easy to create pressure at multiple locations at once, and you could transfer your whole army at a light speed between these Nidus Worms, making it significantly harder to defend such a strategy. ZvZ was mostly about map control and whose Nidus is faster, and was also incredibly hard to hold in ZvP matchup. While the goal of making the Nidus Worm more viable was achieved, now it was overused and it caused a lot of stress for most players, even the Zerg themselves. The Nidus scream would cause panic attacks and make you shiver every time you hear that. It was a really annoying period to play, and after a while Blizzard reverted half of the changes and Nidus Worm fell from Zerg's grace and is now mostly used for all-in attacks only. And that's it for today. I think I've covered almost every annoying strategy or balance period that ever existed in StarCraft 2, maybe except for Skytoss and some minor ones, but we'll talk about that in other videos. By the way, make sure to check out the 2 most annoying meta that exist in StarCraft 2. Have a good day and see you next time.